So I want to talk a little bit about the place of startups in the nonprofit capital market. One of the things that comes up a lot, and you've heard it, and Lara, you've heard it a ton, is there's too many new organizations. There's however many get started every day. Organizations ought to merge. People don't need to start their own thing, that kind of stuff. So I want to talk a little bit about your perspective on those issues, particularly around sort of different subsets of that sort of argument. The first being sort of why start a new organization as opposed to potentially expanding or extending the work of an existing organization. So if you want to talk about sort of what was your calculus in that thinking, and Lara, if you want to talk about how you counsel people who come to you and say they want to start something.
So I was dying to start Women's Law within another organization. I mean, I really wanted to do that and was trying very hard to talk to a bunch of different organizations, but like I had said, I wasn't very good at convincing them of that. And so I really believed it was important, so I did it anyway as its own. And we have looked at merger multiple times. It sort of comes up, I mean, I am sort of constantly thinking about it, and it comes up actively, at least every 2 years. We sit down as a board and really discuss, like, should we do this, should we not? We are kind of in that again, maybe we should, and have some ideas and are kind of poking around those ideas again. We haven't merged because, actually, when you say that, also I think about it from a sister project that is started about the same time we did, and it's the Safety Net Project, which I've told Matt about a lot. Their mission is to kind of educate people about the dangers of technology for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. So cyber stalking, and how an abuser can see where you've been on the internet, see that you've contacted a shelter, and which can trigger incidents of violence. And it's a very real and very important issue. We, on the other hand, are trying to use technology to help people. So we've had to work with them very often. And that project started within one of the national domestic violence organizations, and so it's been interesting to kind of see. We continue. We're still partners, and at one point, we very seriously considered merging with that larger organization, also as kind of, for them, it would have been, here's our project to sort of scare everybody about technology, and here's our project to say, but you can sort of use technology safely, and here's how. In the end, they were interested, and we decided not to do it because I had some concerns about some of the sort of politics in the field, and wasn't convinced of the leadership change that I thought was going to happen. And at the time, we felt like it wasn't going to save very much money either, if any. They were in D.C. We couldn't really very easily move to D.C. They didn't really have space, so it didn't seem like it was going to. Our administrative costs are pretty low anyway, so it did not seem like it was going to save a lot. It didn't seem like it was going to help us fundraise that much. We wouldn't be able to go after some of the funding that they already had. So in the end, it seemed like we were better off on our own, and so we decided to stay on our own. When we look again, those are the things that we would take into account. Is it going to save us money? Are we going to have new funding sources, and are we going to be able to do more with our project because of our association with them?
So if I showed up having left my laptop in my kitchen at the DA's office and asked him for his felons, I would not have gotten the meeting, let alone a yes, right? So for me, it was absolutely, I knew I wanted to do this project. I went to Vera and said, I want to do this project here, because I knew I needed the credibility, the strategy, the insight, the experience that they had, and I knew without it that I didn't stand a chance. I'm an excellent mediator. I'd never run an organization before. I didn't know enough about navigating the system. I didn't have access to the system partners. So I was very clear that kind of starting it on my own was not the thing to do. Even once I was there, one of the questions is, okay, do we build this onto something that exists, right? Does this need to be a freestanding thing? And one of the tests is about getting your ego out of it. Like, you can't do it because at a dinner party you want to answer, you direct a nonprofit. It's totally unacceptable, and it's hard, and it's hard to see that in yourself, right? It's hard to really sit with yourself and be like, what's this about? So if I had every dinner party and every time I met someone I had to lie and say whatever so that I didn't get that piece of it, what would it mean? The project that I'm doing is sufficiently risky that there isn't really anyone else other than Vera in New York with both the credibility and the will to do it. So the people with the credibility aren't up for it, and the people who were up for it probably couldn't get in the door. So it was strategic in that sense. Vera spins its projects off for its own strategic reasons, which they may have talked about here, which is about those demonstrating their efficacy, about securing long-term stable funding sources that are usually multi-year government contracts, and keeping their resources free for generating new ideas and new things. So it's a really good middle ground in that I have that support at the beginning and that affiliation, and then when that's no longer mutually beneficial, then I'm kind of off in the world on my own. I still do all of my own fundraising for the project, so Vera doesn't have money that it twinkles down on us. It had some money for my first year salary, and after that I've raised every penny, and that continues to be true. But it's a really useful trajectory. So.
There's this dangerous trend that we've seen that where you're deemed a leader or by starting something new, and we see it a lot in young people. They want to lead something, be the founder of something, and it's slightly out of control, and it's really interesting. That is dangerous. Not everyone can lead, and not every idea should be tested. In fact, we discourage people from starting things unless they absolutely have to. And why do they absolutely have to start an organization? It's because it's in their DNA, it's in their blood. It's like they're doing an injustice to themselves as human beings, and to potentially the world by not doing it. Most of our fellows absolutely have no desire, like you were talking about, to start a new organization. That's not attractive. They don't want to be an executive director. They know what it's like. They know it's really tough to fundraise. They know they're not going to be that connected to the core, the project, the program. And so a good number of our fellows try to sell off their ideas or partner within an organization, but that's also really hard. Our infrastructure is not set up. There are not a lot of Veras out there who incubate, or Blue Ridges, or incubate organizations, or have a partnership model, or are open to kind of this fluidity.
Well, where is that? I mean, let's talk a little bit more about partnerships, because you mentioned Vera. Elizabeth, you might want to talk a little bit more about the kinds of relationships you forge with other entities in the domestic violence arena. But Lara, from your perspective, what would it take to create more partnerships? Why doesn't it happen?
It's a great question. I think perhaps because of the way our systems are set up, that there's just a focus on institution, one mission, and there's just the hustle that needs to happen to make that one thing exist, that it's not set up to kind of have this more overarching fluid, that in some ways you need a high level of security to do that. And so there's, I don't know, but it's not that people want to see the benefit of partnering, but it's also very challenging from a relationship dynamic perspective as well. We've seen a lot of fellows who have tried to partner with a like organization, and it got so vicious, and just the egos weren't checked at the door, and so that's also crumbled. So it's on many different levels. There's a lot of roadblocks.